Welcome to UC Today with me, David Dungay. Today I have with me Irwin Lazar from Metrigy and Dave Michels from TalkingPointz. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
And we're going to be talking about UCaaS buying behaviours today and how that's changed, particularly over the last sort of 12 months, and what that's likely to look like in the future. But before we get into that, should we do a few introductions? Dave, do you want to kick us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Hi, I'm Dave Michels. I'm the principal analyst and founder of TalkingPointz. Do contributions in various websites and do my own research at TalkingPointz and a subscription newsletter service.
Excellent. And Owen?
Yeah, hi, I'm president and principal analyst at a company called Metrigy. We launched about 2 months ago, focusing on unified communications and collaboration. We spun out of a company called Metrigy Research.
Excellent. So, buying behaviours in 2020, what have we seen over the last 12 months? How has that buying behaviour really changed from a general tech perspective? Let's start there. Irwin, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think we saw, I've heard a 2-year acceleration of cloud up to a 10-year acceleration of cloud in the last year, so I think that's fair. We just published a study a couple of weeks ago that we did data gathering from about 475 companies over the December-January timeframe, and we found almost half now are using UCaaS, which was up from, I want to say, in the 30% range before the pandemic. So we've seen the just massive growth in shifting to the cloud. And as part of that, organizations are increasingly looking at integrated solutions. That calling is part of it, but the video meeting piece is as important, if not more important, as well as having a team messaging function built in. So the UCaaS offering has matured quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely has. Dave, what are you seeing? What have you seen over the last 12 months?
I would agree with everything you said except that last sentence. You had me until you blew it at the end there. You said the industry's really matured. I don't think the industry's really changed that much in the past year or so. What's really happened is that the key word you used was acceleration, and the value proposition has been there for a while. Rapid, particularly around mobile workers, rapid deployments, et cetera. And what's happened during the pandemic is that became much more important, and people have embraced it. So this pandemic has had such a huge impact across so many industries, and the enterprise comm industry has benefited for the most part, has done pretty well as organizations have discovered the importance of these characteristics. And so, absolutely agree that it's been, I don't know how we would have got through this pandemic 20 years ago or 30 years ago, because we were able to do remote work. We were able to have meetings like the one we're having right now, et cetera. But there hasn't really been a whole lot of change in the value proposition, in my opinion, this past year.
Yeah, I mean, I think by maturing, what I would say is you are seeing that, again, a lot of this, like you said, it did start before the pandemic. So Zoom now adding, calling, RingCentral delivering their own video, the morphing of WebEx from a separate WebEx Teams and a WebEx application into a unified app, Microsoft Teams incorporating calling, meeting, and team collaboration. So yeah, a lot of those trends were underway well before the pandemic. So what I meant by maturing is that you're not seeing as many point solutions, people that are just trying to sell phone system and nothing else. We've seen a lot of acquisitions over the last year. Dialpad buying High5 as an example. A number of others that I'm probably forgetting at this point. I know Cordal went and bought a video company. So you are seeing that the vendors have said we need to have an integrated, complete solution, and those that didn't have scrambled a little bit, I'd say, in the last year to build out one.
Well, that's an interesting question you raised there, Owen. I mean, there are a lot of single sort of vendor type people in the marketplace. If you're a single sort of vendor solution right now, like a hosted platform, for example, are your days numbered? Are you heading for an early grave if you've got that sort of business right now?
I think it limits your market. So yeah, if you're selling to doctors' offices and restaurants and things like that, voice is really all they need. They don't care about meeting applications. But if you're trying to sell to the broader market, I think you do need to have either through very close partnerships or through native capabilities, you need to have a broad set of functionality, and that would even extend out to having contact center functionality.
Yeah. Okay. So, Dave, tell me today. The solutions they are maturing slightly. I think we're seeing a lot of development around things like well-being and how the vendors are really trying to tackle that from a technology perspective. But what are the UCaaS buyers? What's really important to them right now? What are you seeing?
Well, there's a lot of different pieces there, and the industry has always been about what's important to individual users, and what's important to individual users is never the same across. And so there's a couple things that are happening that are actually pretty interesting. You just mentioned the monitoring and analytics. That just didn't exist there before, right? We've always had the ability from an IT perspective or an admin perspective to go in and check things. It was kind of cumbersome, so maybe it required a pretty compelling reason to do so, maybe to confirm an accusation or a suspicion or whatever. But what's changed is that in the cloud we have so much more data, and then we have this new generation of analytics capabilities. So what's really changed is that these vendors are making this type of capability available to the common manager. I always think about Jurassic Park, about having the discipline. The IT professionals, HR professionals, they got that super admin right through a lot of discipline and working their way through the organization. And now we're giving a lot of these really powerful insights into, and some of them are very intrusive, by the way, into individual workers to regular managers. And it's going to be interesting to see how this levels out. I think there's going to be a little change there, some bumps there. Another interesting trend that's happening is it's actually two trends that are in conflict with each other. And Irwin just kind of touched on this a little bit, but we're seeing one trend is this API economy, where all these apps want to share their data, and you can do interesting mashups of possibly calling from within an app and things like that. And so that's happening, and that's a really important trend. There's another trend which is in conflict with this, is that every app wants to be the center of your workspace, and they don't want you to go with their other apps. And it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of plays out. And the second point requires APIs, but they don't really want you to leave. And so you see a lot of, particularly in the messaging space like Teams and Slack, they really want you to do all your work in those apps and not switch. And so it'll be interesting to see how these trends play out.
Yeah, Owen, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Dave. What he said is directly reflected in our research in terms of analytics and wanting to get insight into how people are using the apps and engaging, and obviously privacy issues, as he touched on. Certainly, we're seeing the team collaboration space kind of winning that battle of this is where I live, whether it's Teams or Slack or one of the other ones that's out there, and companies looking to build workflows and application integrations. The one area I would add is security. One of the surprising data points that came out of our research this year is that companies are really struggling with security of applications and data in the collaboration space over the last year. We saw a rush, from March onward to get something. We ended up in a situation where by the end of the year, companies had multiple meeting apps, multiple messaging applications, and so on. They're starting to use consumer and public messaging applications like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and so on. And so what the IT is starting to worry about, as well as CISO type functions, is what data is being shared in those applications? Where is it going? Who has access to it? Who from outside my company has been invited into these workspaces? And you think about the evolution of a video call. A couple of years ago, we got on, we had our video call, we were done. Now we have a video call with a transcript and maybe action items, and we've shared files in there, and we've had a chat. And all of that now is content that companies worry about. Is it discoverable? Where did it get stored? Do I need to isolate it in different countries to meet local, GDPR type requirements? So we saw a big jump in the percentage of folks who told us that they're investing in security. They're doing a lot more due diligence around the security capabilities of their providers. And I think that's going to be one of the big stories going out over the next year.
Yeah, I completely agree on the security front. Although the mainstream headlines, they seem to be rather free of any big stories. 2019, I think we saw a lot of huge companies, hitting the headlines through data breaches and hacks and that kind of stuff. It seems to all be a little bit quiet right now. I don't know if the various regulatory bodies around the world are taking it easy.
I don't think it's slowed down at all. I think it's just less newsworthy. It's like, oh, another hack. It's not even worth the front page or whatever. It's just whatever. Irwin's point there about we leave breadcrumbs like you wouldn't believe anymore, and we're leaving breadcrumbs everywhere we go, and we're being tracked everywhere you go. So back to the point you brought up, David, about the tracking software. I mean, this is really an interesting time, and there's going to be a new trend in enterprise communications of things that are not recorded. That we're not quite there yet. I mean, you got Clubhouse kind of touting it a little bit, but of course people are recording that. But it's getting to be hard to have. We've always had very quiet, off the record conversations in the enterprise, and that's becoming harder to do. And if you're even the meet conference rooms now, they have the cameras on all the time, even if you're not having a meeting, because they're trying to count how many people are in the room and doing analytics, and it's like it's getting to the point where we have to go meet in a parking garage to have a completely off the record conversation. So I suspect we're going to start seeing that as a feature, actually.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I do wonder if we're going to see the rise of people using alternative platforms for sort of those more social interactions as well as those off the record. Are we going to see these silos? We use this for hardcore work, and this is what we do, and over here we use this for talking about our Friday nights and maybe some of those chats we don't really want recorded.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sorry. These botware applications that are really monitoring and have seen a huge spike in adoption because of the pandemic. Because a lot of organizations were hesitant to remote work before the pandemic, got forced into remote work. So how do we manage our staff? But you look at things like Hubstaff. I mean, it's taking a picture every 5 minutes of your screen possibly and sending that to your boss. And if you're in a word processor and you haven't moved your cursor in about a half hour, that's now recorded and logged. It's kind of a different feeling of supervision than we've had in the office.
It goes against everything we know about why work from home works too, because work from home works because people have flexibility in a lot of cases to figure out what works for them, when they want to work and when they don't. And so sort of imposing this, from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, you weren't doing anything. Well, yeah, that's because I was working from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, isn't it? It's Okay, so businesses, what is the mindset out there right now? Are businesses really seeing this UCaaS technology and technology in general as have they got their heads around this as an enabler to enable them to do things rather than a cost and a drain on the business? What are we seeing in that sort of perception, Dave?
Well, there's definitely a shift, I would say. There's more emphasis on collaboration where it used to be more emphasis on communication. We used to talk about HD video, and we get celebrated about high definition or the better improved fidelity of audio quality and conference calls and telephone calls. We don't talk about any of that stuff anymore. Now we're really talking much more, and it's good, about outcome focus, about how people are effectively working and particularly in a remote environment. So I think that's been a very interesting shift. You both have talked already about the shift toward suites. I'm not as bullish as you are on the suite versus best of breed. I think this is a story that never gets old. Pendulum is always swinging one way or another, and as far as I can tell, it's always swinging one way or another at every individual company. So, but certainly there's a stronger desire for workflow across apps to be happening, and so that gets back to this API model versus a suite model.
Yeah, Irwin, what are you seeing on that front?
Yeah, it's a topic I talk about a lot. We saw the evolution from an IT perspective of they gauged success by, did it work? At the end of the day, if nobody called me, I'm good, moving on to the next project. We asked participants in the study this year, what do you consider to be your key performance indicators? And above all else, application performance is still the big one. If I'm rolling out voice or video, UCaaS, whatever, and it doesn't work, I've got a problem. But beyond that, it goes to a little bit of what Dave just mentioned in that the next three were, what's the impact on the business? Did we save money? Did we improve agility and revenue? Did we identify business processes and improve those? Are we better able to support things like work from home and distance work? So the mindset of IT, at least the folks responsible for communication and collaboration, I think is fundamentally changed from we're a service, we're dial tone, and all we care about is making sure that dial tone works, to what can we do to contribute to the bottom line of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I always find it fascinating. Businesses, they're going through these processes now. They're optimizing their technology, their process, and how they go about their daily tasks. When we come out of this situation we're all in, I'm in the UK. We're currently in a lockdown at the moment. Businesses, they're going to be leaner than ever. They're going to be in a whole new place than the beginning of 2020. It's going to be fascinating to see, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really fascinating to see where people are working a year from now, assuming the pandemic's under control and there's a lot more. We're leaving it up to the employees to decide, do they want to come in? I mean, our data shows upwards of 80% of employees are going to be either full time at home or mostly full time at home.
I'm surprised it's that high, Irwin. I'm hearing all these people, and I want to slap them. I hear all these people how much they're missing the office and they want to go back. And it's like, have you forgotten the narrative of 2019 and 2018 about how much we hated the office and the open floor plans and all? It's like the grass is always greener type of thing. And I'm just hearing all these people that just can't wait to get back to the office. And so I'm glad to hear that your data is actually showing much stronger distributed work as a permanent thing.
Okay, well let's talk about 2021 then. It's still a long way to go for this year. What are we likely to see from a buying behavior? How can we summarize what we've spoken at? Irwin, do you want to kick us off on that one?
Yeah, I think you'll continue to see a focus on features that start to differentiate companies more so than cost. We don't see companies are really sitting there going, well, should I change to save a couple of dollars a month? If I'm going to change, it's because the experience is better. I'm better able to integrate applications and a lot of the focus of the vendor side is on leveraging AI to do things like improve audio quality, video quality, build workflow integrations, and so on. So I think you'll see the continued maturation of the products. We've kind of got that core voice, video, and audio nailed down in messaging. I think you're also going to see, and one of the data points that we saw was a push into what else can we do to improve the effectiveness of remote workers. So things like virtual whiteboard applications that allow you to do ideation, which doesn't really work well in any of the existing UCaaS technologies. I think that's going to become an important part. Workflow and task and project management and those kind of functions being built in as well. So I think you're going to continue to see more of a emphasis on what the application can do above and beyond just allowing you to make calls and have video chats.
Yeah. And Dave, what are your big things we're gonna see in 2021 from your perspective?
Part of it being under the digital transformation banner, but we're seeing a lot more thought going into new kinds of applications, and most of these applications are going to be communications enabled. So whether it be customer-facing applications that customers install on their smartphones, et cetera, or internal business applications, everything from word processors to ERP, will have communications right in the app, and I think that's going to be much more prevalent. I don't expect there to be an end to this pandemic. I think it's going to be a shift, gradual shift. I mean, I was in China, in 2019, and people were still wearing face masks from the previous pandemic, right? And so I think we're going to see a lot of concern around germs and a lot of concern around touching things, and people will be wearing face masks for a while. So there's going to be a new, we're seeing from a lot of the meeting vendors, touchless interfaces, speech interfaces. We're seeing more focus on personal devices. I think we're going to see actually a rebirth of personal devices, desktop devices type of things. We're also going to see, oh dear, let me get rid of that. We're also going to see this whole new generation of what I call video first endpoints, which are basically the next generation of the phone. And they're basically, instead of a handset and a bunch of buttons, they're a big screen and or a small screen and a camera, and they can make phone calls, but they're really going to be video first devices. And I think we're going to see a lot of those take off both at home and at offices, particularly in offices with shared or multi-use kind of configurations, hot desking, hoteling, and things like that. So a lot of changes actually.
And obviously you mentioned phone calls there, the humble phone call. Remember those? Yeah. I mean, Irwin, I know you released some research recently on this. what's going to happen to the regular old phone call? You know, are the days numbered for that method of communication?
I think it's changing. Yeah, I think the phone system is less important than it was a year ago, or the definition of a phone call I think is changing. So, you know, it used to be across the PSTN. Now it's using a meeting application. So the data point that we published was roughly 47% of companies that said that they saw a decline in phone system utilization in 2020. Of that, about 28% were moving to meeting apps. So using, you know, things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, et cetera, as the way that you communicate internally and externally. So even if I want to just, you know, I want to talk to Dave, I just ping him on a chat and we click in into a Zoom call, for example. Or the other areas where people are just using their mobile devices, kind of what Dave talked about earlier, that becomes the new phone. So there's a class of company that says, you know, do we even need to give you a phone number? If you want to talk to someone, you've got your meeting app, you've got your mobile device, you know, we're good. So there are still, you know, a lot of companies. We did see about 25% of companies that were increasing phone volume, so smaller, but still significant. So I think the enterprise phone system, in the attitudes of most of the people we talk to, is not nearly as important for internal and employee to B2B type engagement as the meeting application. It's still critically important for B2C.
There's an important distinction in the types of communications that we have, and so the chats and even the emails are with known relationships. And if I don't have you on a chat system, or if I don't have your email address, I'm probably going to call you. Now, there's a lot of business that gets done with known relationships. Probably most business gets done with known relationships. But businesses grow by establishing new communications. Customers call businesses that don't have a relationship. They have to call an 800 number, et cetera. And so the phone is still the most universal mechanism, and is often the starting point of how you communicate. So I'm just guessing, but when Irwin talks about some companies are saying decreasing and some companies are saying increasing role of phones, I think it's going to depend a lot on who you're asking and what role they're in, and what they're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree.
Okay, well, look, chaps, I think that's a great place to end today's conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for watching. You've been watching me, David Dungay, on UC Today. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please give us a like or share on social media. It's greatly appreciated.
I know I will.
That's all from me. I'll catch you next time.